Hi, Caroline. It's so great to be able to catch up with you after Elevate 2020. How have you been since we wrapped up the accelerator?
Missing Elevate a lot, missing the group sessions and missing connecting with all those awesome game devs. But good news, this year I hired some new freelancers, and that's been very positive. Hiring one for software, hiring one for music, because it's been very positive because I've been working alone a lot on this, and it's nice now to, if I have a bad day, to still watch the game progress. There's something that's really nice to the whole game not being feeling like a blocker the whole time to my own project. It's very satisfying. And played a lot of Hades, played a lot of Animal Crossing.
It's usually said that the most personal stories are also the most universal, where we find we can relate to those intimate details even if we haven't experienced them exactly ourselves. Has that been the case with This Is Reality as well?
I hope so. I think watching people react to the game. I mean, part of the reason this game has kind of got so far is because when I've taken it to events, when that was a thing, I saw a stronger reaction than I expected, given like, it was quite a ratty prototype, to be honest. And still, some people were like, ugh. So and then I think you get that when you talk to other people about their experiences. You get this kind of, oh, I've been there, even though you did it happened differently. The conversation you had was different, but like I have been in that position. One thing that's been really helpful has been talking to other people about their experiences, because there's an amazing amount that's in common between, like, the emotional experiences are still the same, even if the actions were different, or the arguments in the specifics were different, but the reaction was kind of the same, and the kind of reasons, the insecurities behind it, or the expectations that weren't met were the same. So I think that's been the most helpful thing, is that these characters are not me, and they aren't people I know, or they're a lot of people that I know. Yeah, that's been incredibly helpful. So a lot of the difficulty in working on this game is deciding how much I want to reveal about my own experiences, because this is incredibly personal. And I generally, besides that, I generally don't reveal much about myself on the internet. I'm quite scared of things like Gamergate, of like I saw the abuse that the Ooblets people got. I think like there's some really toxic people online. So I don't know, I want to open this whole can of worms in a game. Because it's given I'm not proud of it, and also given that it's me that's telling the story, but obviously there's another person involved, or people, depending on what memories I pick, and misrepresenting them is not fair. Like, obviously I kind of inadvertently will, like I have to, it's my perspective, and I know that some of the things they disagree with me on. And then obviously there's the whole, in making this game, reflecting a lot about my previous relationships, because like, I've made a lot of mistakes in previous relationships, and I've been thinking a lot about how my expectations of my relationships fed into my selfishness in them, which doesn't justify anything that I've done, but it's interesting to question what you think you deserve. Like, I felt like I deserved to be happy. I deserved to blah, blah, blah. I have this need, insert, and I deserve to have someone who fulfills that need. And if you don't, I am justified in behaving this way because this is important and you are somehow not fulfilling it. and kind of a lot of regret about previous behavior of mine.
Is there any specific hope you have for the players of your game? A certain thought process or emotion you'd want them to experience?
I want the players to care about this. The game started out as the breakup scene, and people's reactions were very different to that, depending on whether they themselves felt like they'd gone through that. So some people reacted very strongly. Some people felt like, oh, I see what you did there, but I'm checked out now. Like I'm being emotionally bullied, or I'm the equivalent of like bringing in the token son that dies at the beginning that justifies everything else. Like I want to take the character on the journey up to that point. And in doing that, I am buying into people's experiences, I guess. I don't think it works if you don't have any romantic experience whatsoever. Like I'm not sure a prepubescent will get anything from this game. Although it'd be awesome if they did. But I mean, there's a lot more questions than I have answers to a lot of the things I'm talking about. Like I have a lot of questions about what a good relationship means. Because I think ultimately a good relationship is simply one where both people are committed in like to working towards it. Like, and by that I simply mean they're working together, that they intend to stay together, and I think that's it. Like, I mean, you can say everything else, like you should be trusted, you shouldn't cheat, you should respect each other, but I feel like I've seen these various rules break, and still, like, people consider, at least themselves, by whatever means that they whatever metric they think a good relationship is, they feel like they've achieved that. So, and then what does that mean for a bad relationship? What does it mean for meaning to break up? Like when you should break up, is it simply when you're not committed? Like if you're with a lovely person who cares about you, is it good enough to say, but I'm not sure, I'm checked out? And like, do you, I mean, these again dig into my own experience of like my expectations, and I think mentally checking out of relationships which were hindsight very, very good, but they didn't live up to whatever kind of grandiose expectation I had. And so it was a lot more questions. Like I would like this to be a discussion point more than anything else. I don't think I have an overriding message of like, I think this is my philosophy. Just like, I hope people talk about it.
Question 3, controlling 2 characters.
Yeah, so there are other games where you control 2 characters. Knights on Bikes and Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons are 2 that I remember looking at. But there isn't a good standard for it, and it's a difficult problem because there's a lot of things that I think are taken for granted normally in single player games that you start to question in this kind of setup. So I mean, a mechanic that we played around with for a long time and is still in the game is this idea of playing with this idea of switching between them, and how well you can switch between them indicates how well they're cooperating or how aligned they are. And I think that works quite well, because when you build on that kind of expectation and then you remove it, like there's a feeling of loss. There's like a feeling of the carpet being taken under you that is quite unique to games, I think. But an interesting question that's come up with being able to control 2 characters is, who is the player then? Because the player is normally an avatar in the game. They're normally like role playing as a particular character. But if you're 2 characters, what are you then? Are you the puppeteer? And then how do you create distinct personalities when you control 2 characters? Because in a single player game, you can have the non-player characters react to you in a particular way in order to kind of get a sense of whether you're good, evil, like where you kind of stand. But the 2 characters are reacting to each other, and like, say you understand both perspectives, like, why should they argue? Because you know why they're arguing, and you also know Like, you could just stop the argument as the player. You could just decide no. So there's this kind of like this boundary on what the player can do. That's quite interesting. Like, so, I mean, a way to kick the can down the road, or maybe to avoid the problem, is to have a dominant character or a main character per day. So I might see the girl's perspective today, or the woman's perspective. In which case, then I can switch to the male character, but only for the purposes of cooperating, and it is from the woman's point of view. And then tomorrow it will be from the man's point of view. And yes, we can cooperate, but, and in that sense, maybe avoid that problem. That's probably the direction we'll take it, because that seems quite, that then captures being able to both communicate both points of view, but also this kind of like these problems. So it's a bit more clear cut then how to deal with them.
What's next for ScribbleScape with This Is Reality?
So trying to work on the demo. So a lot of Elevate, because working on this game has been generating a lot more ideas than necessarily I have a clear idea of this is exactly the thing I want to communicate. It's been a lot more like what am I interested in communicating, and what can I communicate, and what have I not seen before that I think would be interesting. And these are all a bit fluffy, and a lot of things fail when playing in these spaces. But now I really, really credit Elevate with like helping so much with things like the importance of playtesting and focus and pre-production, that I feel like we're in a really good place now, where we actually have enough stuff to show what the game is and what the game could be, and focusing on polishing that up to raise funding. And that's where we are now.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Caroline. To keep up to date with all the latest ScribbleScape news, you can follow Caroline on Twitter at ScribbleScape.